following story is a true classic Victorian haunting that took place in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, England in the late 19th century. Like many hauntings, it appears to be the result of an emotionally disturbed life of a woman whose ghostly imprint was left behind for others to observe. Today, let's delve into the mysterious ghost of Imogen Swinhoe. Number 3. The Beginning. The story begins at St Anne's in Cheltenham, UK, in Victorian England. The building was constructed in 1860 and was located on the corner of Pittsville Circus Road. St Anne's was a grand family residence with extensive grounds with a large carriage drive, 14 bedrooms, stabling for 3 horses and a gardener's cottage. The first occupants of the property were Henry Swinhoe and his wife Elizabeth. Henry was born in Calcutta and was the son of a solicitor. Henry purchased the property shortly after it was built and named it Garden Reach. Unfortunately, Henry's wife Elizabeth died in childbirth, where he became a widower with 5 young children. Filled with grief and sorrow, Henry Swinhoe took to drinking, which escalated over time. In 1870, Henry remarried, and it was hoped that his new wife, Imogen, would not only help him overcome his anguish, but help cure him of his drinking. From the start, the marriage was a disaster, where Imogen herself turned to alcohol, as it may have been the only way she could cope with Henry's drunken behaviour. Imogen believed Henry only married her to look after his 5 children, and she did not approve of the way Henry was bringing up his children. Drunken quarrels ensued, and soon after he instigated legal proceedings where he accused Imogen of gross and continual habits of drunkenness and violent and indecent language. Imogen allegedly threw a chair at him. On other occasions, she threw different articles of furniture. Henry claimed that her behaviour enfeebled him and was injurious to his health. Henry filed for divorce, where it was implied that Imogen was violent and unstable. But things were not as one-sided as the evidence suggests. Local newspapers showed otherwise, where in 1875 Henry appeared in court after threatening to shoot an errand boy, Frederick Crisp, who was falsely accused of assaulting a servant called Charlotte Whittington. A short time later, Henry again appeared in court after he was accused of pushing his walking stick into the side wheel of a pram that was being pushed by a young mother called Alice Speechy, causing it to overturn into the gutter. If it wasn't for the prompt action of Alice's Speechy's nurse, the child would have fallen from the pram. Henry Swinhoe was found guilty and fined. A further incident occurred on the 5th of April 1875 when Imogen accused Henry of infidelity. She stated that he fathered an illegitimate child by the housemaid Elizabeth Townsend. Henry's children and the servants were witnesses to this accusation. Elizabeth was so distressed that she brought an action for damages. Newspaper reports showed that the Swinhoes' marriage had broken down irretrievably by 1875. Henry passed away on the 14th of July 1876. After their divorce, Imogen fled to Bristol, where she passed away in September 1878. Number 2. Imogen's Ghost. Rose Despard and her family moved into St Anne's in 1882. Rose lived there with her father, her invalid mother, and several siblings. 10 months after moving in, Rose saw her ghost for the first time. In June 1882, Rose was getting ready for bed when she thought she heard the mother's footsteps near the door. But when she opened the door, she found nobody there. But when she slowly turned her head to look around the passageway, Standing silently at the head of the stairs was the apparition of a tall lady dressed in black, wearing a bonnet with a veil. The woman clutched a handkerchief to her face. After a few seconds, the woman descended the stairs, and it was at this stage that the candle that Rose was holding suddenly puffed out. Over the following 7 years, the entity was frequently seen by various members of the family, where they saw it so often that it had become an accepted member of the family. On one occasion, Rose had watched the figure for half an hour and could see that the figure was obviously distressed and tried talking to her, but Rose received no reply and the ghost just vanished with its head bowed low. The figure would often appear whilst they were seated at the dinner table, where she would appear to one or two people whilst being invisible to the others. On other occasions, she would suddenly appear between two guests who were oblivious of her presence, where they continued to chat while Rose and her father would be observing her across the table. Her footsteps were described as light, like a person walking softly with thin boots on. Rose's accounts of the haunting appeared in the 1892 Journal of the Society for Psychical Research, where she identified the ghost as that of Imogen Swinhoe. Rose knew a man called Frederick Myers, who was a founding member of the society. Myers investigated the haunting, obtaining statements from witnesses, including family, friends, and the report of the ghost gained serious credibility. St Anne's, in her lifetime, held awful memories for Imogen. It is hard to imagine why her apparition would return. Most of the hauntings occurred in 1884, where there were other sightings of the ghost not only in the house but also in the gardens, in Pittville Circus Road, and in the grounds of the opposite property. The appearances seem to have ceased in 1889, possibly after an exorcism requested by Mr. Despard. Number 1. The Ghost Returns. In 1958, a man living in an apartment a few houses along the street from St Anne's woke up one night to see a woman silhouetted against the bedroom window. She was dressed in late Victorian clothing and her head was bowed. She appeared to be gently sobbing into a handkerchief held to her face. When the man cried out an alarm, the figure suddenly vanished. The man claimed to have had no interest in the supernatural, but in the following years his skepticism would be put to the test, where he would regularly see the woman in black walking down the stairwell or wandering through the rooms, weeping into her handkerchief. Why did she suddenly choose to haunt other places? And why did she suddenly reappear after such a long period of time, as she was also seen as late as 1985?